Now we're going to take a look at different types of businesses in the United States and different ways that people could organize their business structure. Okay, a merger is when two companies combine to become one company. Mergers are legal as long as the merger doesn't create a monopoly in the United States. We talked about previously this semester the proposed merger between Time Warner Cable and AT&T. When they propose a merger, the government has to evaluate if that would be bad for consumers, if they would control too much of the market, that they could potentially decrease quality or increase prices for consumers. The government may not allow that merger. So that would be an example of a merger when two companies join together. There's different types of mergers. The first is a horizontal merger. A horizontal merger is a merger of companies that are similar to each other. And they produce the same type of product. So they're at the same level of production. So two companies that provide cell phone service, such as Cingular and Bell South or AT&T, if those companies merge together because they make the same product, that would be called a horizontal merger. A vertical merger is when two companies at different levels of production merge. So for example, in the pork industry, if a hog farmer purchased a fleet of trucks to ship his pigs to be processed, that would be an example of a vertical merger because the trucking company provides transportation, the hog farm produces hogs, and so they're at different levels of production in processed pork. A conglomerate is a company that has merged with other companies that may do things that are totally different from what they produce. So you can see in this image there's a lot of different companies that are examples of conglomerates. You have Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Kraft, Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, Unilever. There's a lot of different companies that buy other brands. For example, Procter & Gamble owns Tide, looks like Charmin paper towels, a lot of different things that they're not at the same level of production. They're not even the same thing. So they just combine and become a much larger company. GE is another example. They do electricity, insurance, real estate. They own NBC. So those types of companies are called conglomerates. A business that is owned by one person is called a sole proprietorship. Sole means one and proprietorship means ownership. So there is a single owner of a sole proprietorship. Some businesses that operate in this way face advantages and disadvantages. A disadvantage of a sole proprietorship is that the owners have unlimited liability. Unlimited liability means that you are totally responsible for anything that happens to your business. So if your business loses money, you lose money. If you remember earlier in the semester, we watched that ESPN show about the athletes that lost their money. Curt Schilling had created a video game company and he invested millions of dollars in it, and when that company went bankrupt, he lost all of his investment and he had to declare bankruptcy himself. So that would be an example of unlimited liability. Limited life is another disadvantage for sole proprietorships, that the business itself, the life of the business is tied to the life of the owner. So if an owner passes away and nobody else takes ownership of that company, then that company also is no longer in operation. Advantages to sole proprietorships is that if you make a profit, it's all yours. You don't have to share that profit with anyone else. Also, being a sole proprietor, you get to decide 100% of the business decisions and you don't have to compromise with anyone else about how your business is run. A partnership is a business that is owned by two or more people that is privately owned. A disadvantage similar to sole proprietorship is that you have unlimited liability. That yes, you may have another partner to share responsibility for running the company with, but if the company suffers financially, you also take a major blow financially. An advantage of a partnership is that there isn't quite as much liability as a sole proprietorship, and so you have two people to invest in the company and they can share the burden. A corporation is a company that is owned by many, many people, and the company can be sold publicly on the stock market as individual shares. Under the law, a corporation is treated as an individual person, so their profits will be taxed just like an individual's profits will be taxed. They have a board of directors that makes business decisions. And in order for a corporation to form, they have to have permission to form and be publicly traded, and that begins when they receive a charter from the government. A charter is a document that gives you permission to form a corporation. Advantages to a corporation is that you have limited liability. That means that if you own, some shares in a company and your total investment or ownership of those shares is $1,000 in value, if that company were to go bankrupt, you don't lose the entire value of the company. You only lose what you've put in, and that may be $1,000. It's still a lot of money, but if a company is worth millions of dollars, you only lose a small portion of that. Also, an advantage is that they have unlimited life, that if an owner chooses to sell their stock or they no longer want to be a part owner of the corporation, or if they pass away, the company itself doesn't suffer because the burden of running the company and owning the company is shared by many, many people. So we would say that corporations have unlimited life. A franchise is a business in which a private entrepreneur purchases the rights to own and open a location that's part of a larger company. So for example, McDonald's. If you want to open a McDonald's, you can get permission from the McDonald's company to open a franchise. So you can use their name, their brand, they'll advertise on your behalf, and you can sell their products. And so you don't have to develop a whole brand new idea for a company because somebody's already done that and you're just going to sell their product. You do have to pay what's called royalties to the franchise or the parent company. So if I open a McDonald's, I don't keep 100% of those profits. I have to pay to use their name and to sell their products and for their advertising. And so I send a portion of my profits back to the original McDonald's company. So advantages of a franchise, the products and brand are already created and well known and proven to be successful. So if I want to open a Jimmy John's, for example, people already know Jimmy John's all over the country, and so they'll recognize that brand and be willing to give me their money because they've had these products other places. A disadvantage for a franchise, for the person who opens the franchise company, they lose part of their profit because they have to send it back in royalties to the parent company. A disadvantage for parent companies is that you take a risk that if I have a successful business and I decide to allow someone else to use my name and products, if they are not as good of a business owner as I am, they could ruin the reputation of my brand. For example, there's a Dunkin' Donuts in Clayton that was managed really poorly, and so after that happened, a lot of people didn't want to go to Dunkin' Donuts because even if it wasn't that Dunkin' Donuts, because the experience that they had at the Dunkin' Donuts at home wasn't up to par with their expectations, and so it could damage your brand as a whole if one of your franchises is operated poorly.